Hello and welcome to today's vlog. I'm going to talk today about decisions and the decision making process in a little bit. So I've got a couple of questions that I thought I'd answer first. And the first one was, am I good at making decisions? Now this is a bit of a cop-out answer. I like to think I am, but sometimes when it comes down to it, I tend to think a little bit too much about it and think about the consequences. So often I like to take my time over a decision and make sure it's the right one. But once I've made a decision, then I tend to stick to it. I'm very difficult to get me to change my mind once the decision has been made. Okay, so the next question, how do I make decisions? I guess that depends upon what the decision is. If it's just a simple decision of what do I want for breakfast, it's usually the case of whatever is the closest and easiest at the time to make. If it's a bit more of an in-depth decision, then I like to do a little bit more research and think about it a little bit more. So I guess how I make decisions depends on what it is that I'm making the decision over. Have I ever wondered, what if? So once a decision's been made, have I ever sat there and thought, I wonder what if I'd picked the different option? And yeah, I guess I have in some situations. Again, not over silly or simple things like what to have for breakfast, but more in-depth decisions like, what if my husband and I had gone and looked at another house? Would we have still bought this house, or would we have made the decision to buy a different house? What if my husband and I had been and had dinner at a different hotel on this particular evening? Would we have then booked that hotel to get married in as opposed to the one that we did? So yeah, I do often wonder if the decisions that we make would have perhaps took us down a different path and maybe made things different. But yeah, that's not to say I'm not happy with the decisions that I have made. It's just sometimes I think it's nice to wonder about the alternative decision. So, what is one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make? That one's quite an easy question to answer, really. The hardest decision I've ever had to make is naming my girls. Now, those who read the blog regularly and watch my YouTube videos know that I don't mention the girls by name on there. That's my own personal decision to do that. So I won't tell you in the video what their names are, but I will go through the decision-making process of what happened in naming them. So with my eldest, before I found out I was pregnant, I had the song Daisy, Daisy, Give Me Your Answer Do stuck in my head. Don't know why, it's not a very common song, it's not one you hear every day, but it was there nonetheless. And all the way through the pregnancy, it was there. And I took this as a little bit of a sign, thinking, well, if it's a girl, then perhaps she's destined to be a Daisy. My husband and I couldn't agree on any names, any boys' names or any girls' names. I went through loads of books, looking at names, reading names, finding out what they meant. And yeah, we just couldn't agree. So I said to him on the off chance, well, what about Daisy? And he said, yeah, that's a nice name. So Daisy was there at the top of my list. So all the way through the pregnancy, after we'd done this, my daughter, we didn't know whether we were having a boy or a girl, but if she was a girl, it would be called Daisy. We never did agree on any boys' names, which is lucky for us, seeing as it turned out to be a girl. So once I'd had her, the midwife turned around and says, what do you want to call us? And my husband looked at me and said, should we call her Daisy then? And I went, no. And his face was one of, well, we agreed on this. It was a decision we made a while ago. Why don't you want to call her Daisy? I took one look at her and I said, she's not a Daisy. She just isn't. It just doesn't fit her or suit her, or it's just not her. And so he looked at me and said, well, what do you want to call her then? So I said a name. And he went, yeah, okay, we'll call her that. But this name had never been discussed before. It wasn't one we'd even thought about. It wasn't one that was even on my list. But it came to me just like that. and it was her name, it suited her. And so what was originally one of the hardest decisions I'd ever had to make turned out to be one of the easiest decisions that I've ever made.